Hey, this is me building a $4 million a year business in public. I record these videos every day and follow more or less the same format. We start with some YouTube comment Q&A, and that's just to deliver you guys some value and then answer your guys' questions right off the bat. Nope, not that. This. Then I do some building and strategizing in public before finally doing some growth stats across my YouTube, Instagram, and then my products. So going over to my main channel here, 186.368K subs, and then my daily updates channel is this one, 13,684. All I do for that daily Q&A is scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I got some interesting stuff to talk about the business and the direction that I'm taking with this. But yeah, just scrolling all the way down to the bottom here and finding the last question so we can do the Q&A. And I'll talk all about that later. So 22 hours ago, Vamp Fox said, what if you're selling people access to your templates so they pay monthly for your self-hosted platform? So he's talking about the AI consulting, AI agency model, where basically you sell people on your ability to build AI into their business. And I think Vamp Fox here is raising an interesting point, which I just want to touch on, which is basically the difference between selling, like templates versus selling implementation. Now, I always sell implementation. The reason why I always sell implementation, that's what I do. The reason why I do that is because implementation allows you to very easily get into strategy, consulting, and then working with them almost in like an operations context. Whereas when you sell templates, all you're basically doing is you are treating yourself like an API endpoint where they send you a spec, you build it, and then you just send them the thing back. If you think about it from a value creation perspective, templates are pretty damn straightforward and about as simple as you can get. Again, interface, input is the spec, output is the brief, output is the automation. Whereas implementation, typically you have some discovery period, then you have some scoping period, then you have some proposal for services, then they pay you, and then you get some onboarding to learn more about their business. And then finally you build a thing, and there's usually some revisions and back and forth. So the latter part is a lot more involved. And generally, because it's so much more involved, you can squeeze a lot more money out of people because of it, right? And then, if you can squeeze more money out of it, what does that actually mean in practical terms? That means that your average order value goes way the hell up. And if your average order value goes way the hell up, when you're making more money per client, that's just the way that I always see things is like leads are what is scarce. And so if I acquire a lead, I don't want to sell them something cheap. I want to sell them something really expensive because I put all the work in getting that lead. Leads are like gold. They're like the most scarce commodity in the universe, but also, the most abundant commodity in the universe. I'm saying it slightly differently, kind of viewed from a different lens. So, if I'm going to do something like a service, then I'm going to go into a high ticket service so that when I get somebody interested in working with me, I get to squeeze a lot of money out of them. So I think basically, to make a long story short, I think what you're asking for is possible. And there are probably some people that run businesses like this, but I don't think there are people that make a lot of money doing that. This is high volume, low average order volume approach. And it also makes you pretty risky because the more narrow and shallow you get, the more, deep and narrow you get, the more specific you get. Let's say you build a specific type of template and all you do is you treat yourself like an API endpoint and it's hyper productized. The more at risk you are for, being automated. I don't really think you could automate a full Saraev agency experience, at least not for the next 3 or 4 years. But I think you'll definitely be able to automate the creation of templates in the next 3 or 4 years. So it also just insulates risk. Also, it's just funner, man. I much prefer closing a $9,500 deal versus a $350 template. Okay, Fatima's asking some questions here. I want you to know that when you do this question brewing in progress, I'm just going to skip over it. So if you want to, ask a question, then please add it below. Richard Santos says, hi. Blue Aspen says, cool seeing you up on the Skool community. Congrats on all your success. Thanks for the info. When are you starting up an internship program? That's interesting. And here's the question. What type of business would you want to buy later on? Physical or service business? I'm actually kind of I'm agnostic to that. Obviously, I think that digital is the way to go. But physical services businesses, I think, tend to be a lot more resilient to changes in our economy because they're physical. And as a result, I also think they're less at risk for displacement with AI because they interact with the physical world, right? Until we get some crazy robotics, automation, then I think there'll still be a lot of value in doing that. And actually, a piece of advice that I give to people is to find a way to tie in the physical world to their services to insulate them. Some sort of physical on-site visit to a manufacturing plant or whatever as somebody that does automation. That's really cool. That's a unique thing that sets you apart. And it's you will gain information there that a robot could not feel realistically or feasibly get. So that insulates you a little bit, right? So I'm not actually like, I don't really care either for my next business purchase. I think realistically, anything that is relatively low margin but very high revenue that allow me to legitimize myself by using high revenue social proof, and then also allow me and afford me the ability to do small margin optimizations that lead to like big savings. If you think about it, like if you take a business that is at a 5% margin and you bump them up to, let's just even say, a 6% margin, what you've done is you've increased the total production of that business, the total EBITDA, by 20%, right? The relative increase here, or an objective increase of 1% in the margin, is equal to a relative increase of 20%. There are very few things in life where you can literally get a 20% return on your investment, or a 1.2x or whatever, right? So that's a good example of one. Now, my systems are fantastic. I think I'd probably be able to yield much more than a single percentage point margin. Like a single percentage point margin, you could do that by switching payment processors, you know? You could do that by like saving some money on software. These are free. You could do that with like affiliates. One big thing I always tell people to do is get the customer to pay for the service and then have them sign up to your affiliate code. And a lot of people look at me and they're like, Nick, that's not a lot of money. So why the hell would I do that? That doesn't really seem worth it. And I'm like, well, that's like 3% to your margin, man. Like, where else are you going to find 3% to your margin? That's crazy. That's almost doubling the profit of a business that makes that money, that 5% margin that I talked about earlier. So like, you know, these are all crazy wins, right? I think realistically, I'd probably take like 5 to like a 15%, which is triples the earnings before interest, which is sick, right? So the amount of good advice in this channel is unmatched. Thank you very much. Hey, Nick, appreciate your content. Would you be able to provide details as to how you help students land their first client and make your school? Thanks again. You know, I'm trying to move away from this language here because I think that a lot of coaching programs have like really poor connotations of students and whatnot. I understand that like, you know, some people will probably think of themselves like that, but you're just a member of the community. You know, you're not a student or whatever. How do I help people land their first client? For the most part, it's daily accountability that I provide, and then basically everybody else in the program now provides to each other. It's a really cool like accountability mechanism that we've set up where a lot of people post daily breakdowns of what they did, and then everybody else, the unit, comes together and says, hey, you know, are you focusing on revenue generating activities? Or hey, are you spending the time and the energy you should be doing this when you could be doing that, and so on and so forth. So we all get to lean on each other quite a bit. And then I come in and I do a daily Q&A that supports you, that supports your progress on a pre-recorded video program that also walks you through day by day what you need to do in order to, you know, get that first client. So a very supportive environment for the most part. To not waste time reading someone's lengthy comment, ask the viewers to comment in a specific format. Example, start with the questions, give the context, and then tell the story. So you can ultimately decide if it's necessary to read further or on in their comment or not. That's a really interesting suggestion. One of my big issues here is I probably spend 30% of the total time on my Q&A just reading people's context. And to be honest, most of the time I don't actually need the context. Context is nice to have. But for the most part, you know, I'm zooming out. I've answered thousands of questions in this format before, so there tend to be patterns, and I can usually answer a question just based off the pattern. So I really like this. I think this is a solid format. I wonder if we could just standardize it. I wonder if I could just add this somewhere to my pitch. So if you have a question, start with the question. Then later give the context. And finally, if you have a story that you want to tell me alongside it, then put it down below. I could probably copy this and then add this somewhere to my YouTube description. Thank you very much for the business development, Jacko. I appreciate it. Skill stacking. If you can gather skills in all three, you can start or run almost any business regardless of the model. The analogy of strategies tactic underpins just that. Knowing cold email doesn't make you a full stack marketer. Becker talked about this like 5 years ago at Skool. Well, apologies that I was not 5 years ahead of Mr. Becker. What you mentioned around this time. Okay, cool. Please go in depth on the dictation flow to interact between multiple instances. Sperry's talking about Claude. Already has me thinking about Anyden's workflow generating interacting with multiple instances at once. Yeah, pretty cool. The workflow is basically you have, when Claude is done with whatever task, you have it either automatically focus the window, which is a script you could build in to, you know, VS Code or whatever the hell you're using, or you like play some chime or something saying, you know, like Claude 4 is done or something, and then you alt tab and then you do it. And then voice dictation flow is really easy. I just, I literally hold down the FN key and then a little voice dictation window pops up. So this is me just saying stuff right now. And as you can see, we just entered that into the URL bar, just checking my OBS to make sure I didn't screw up the audio. No, I didn't. So it looks like I can just do that. Yeah, as a result of that, pretty cool. Self-hosting FML. Do not recommend Anyden self-hosting for anybody here that is looking to make their first $10,000 with automation, simply because Anyden self-hosting is just so much extra work. Top tier list of AI companies would be so great. I know you made one of the services you can offer, but a general one would be amazing. Thank you for all the videos. Top tier list of AI companies. It depends on what you mean by AI companies. Do you mean like an agency? Olivier, XP Pen and Presentify, thank you. Leo says, do you ever face dark periods in your life? If so, do you feel those moments fueled your drive to build your kingdom, or was it always just an inner desire to be great? Curious because your work ethic is top tier and privileged backgrounds rarely produce this level of consistency. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this in yesterday's video, but there was a time when I was on death's door, and I remember that last thought as everything was closing in around me being, I can't die yet. I haven't done anything meaningful. So I definitely do retreat to that dark place. You talk about privilege. I mean, I think we're all really privileged in some way, shape, or form. I don't want to say that to some starving Nepali child or something. I think I'd probably sound like a sack of shit for it. But to make a long story short, what's going on here is nothing really crazy. If you think back to the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, let's say 18th century, my great grandfathers or whatever would have literally had to go down into a coal mine for 12 to 14 hours a day, eat half a potato and some dry caked bread, caked in charcoal and dirt and mud. And then they would have to do that 6 to 7 days a week, every week for the vast majority of their life. Okay. Compared to that, what is sitting in front of a computer and clicking a couple of buttons? Like, can we just really appreciate the magnitude of scale difference there? I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that at all. Some of the stories my father tells me, somebody that grew up on the farm in Eastern Europe, during communism, where basically his whole plot of land was repurposed for tobacco farming for the country. Some of the stories that he tells me are crazy. And I think about the amount of work that he had to do as a 13-year-old child. And I think about the work that I'm doing today as a 29-year-old man. I'm like, well, this is pretty damn easy, right? So I also think perspective has a lot to do with it. But yeah, I've definitely gone through some dark periods in life, like most other people. I have some fuel that I can glean from it. But I think if we're also just being pragmatic, it's really not that much work. Who or how do you edit your shorts and reels? I work with an editor for my Instagram content, and then we are now reposting that to YouTube. So we actually have another channel set up, which I'm going to try and access without absolutely ruining everything like I normally do, called Nick Automates right over here, with 4,191 subscribers. Got a lot of people commenting on it and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. Basically, we go from the Instagram and then push directly now to YouTube, which is, this is crazy. We've had 400,000 views on this stuff in just the last 2.5 weeks. 70,000 views. Look at this. Insane numbers. Wow. This clip has 130,000. This is just free. Insane. Didn't even realize we were doing that well. Anyway, yeah, I have an editor for that, and he's a killer. And he reached out to me after I made some comment about some anime or something. And he's like, hey, I run these anime channels. Would you like to work together? I think I can do really well for you. We jumped on a call. We talked a little bit about the strategy. And then it was mostly hands-off from there. I just record reels using a teleprompter, usually batch them once a week. And then he does the editing and stuff like that. He's a great guy. Great guy. One of the best people I've ever worked with. And yeah, I'm happy to reward ambition where I see it. Daryl says, excited to see more Claude stuff from you, Nick. Thank you. Quick question. You mentioned about manually doing your daily financial bookkeeping. What software are you using for this? Google Sheets, my friend. I will literally open up all my bank accounts, and then I will just alt tab over to a Google Sheet, and I will add the date. I'll add a brief description of what the thing is, and then I will add the amount. And then I have a USD to CAD converter because I'm also Canadian, and so as a result, I just always like to conceptualize stuff in Canadian dollars. Okay, one more from Tell Us the Goat, who says these Q&As are super helpful. Really appreciate them. Quick question. As a beginner, you built a system or solution to a client's problem on an automation platform. How do you actually go about building or delivering the system to them? Would you tell them to create an account on the platform and then build the automation on their account? Would you host it from your account on an MCP, on a Model Context Protocol server, I imagine you're saying? No, you don't have to do any of this stuff. This is just needlessly complex. So my recommendation for you, okay, is twofold. One, when you get the money, 2, book a kickoff call. On the kickoff call, sign up to platforms. So actually have the customer sign up to all the platforms that you want directly on the kickoff call, okay? And by doing so, once they sign up to the platforms, get their username and password, and then auth on their, N8N or Make or Lindy or Zapier, whatever the hell. The SOP is the same regardless of automation platform. That's why I like it. It's so simple. You can also get them to sign up using your affiliate code and stuff, right? So yeah, if you think about it, what does this do? This just eliminates the handoff problem entirely. Like, sure, handoff is usually a problem that most automation agencies need to face, but I just have the client front load that work. I get affiliate revenue, they get full intellectual property, and then I get to eliminate the handoff completely. Just tends to work better that way. And then when you deliver, what you do is you just record a video, walking them through the system, telling them how to access it, giving them links and stuff like that. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let us take a peek at the brand stats really quickly. And then let's chat a little bit about where I'm going to go over the course of the next couple of days. We have our first piece of content coming out on the main channel again after a quite lengthy hiatus. And I think this content is going to be higher quality and just way, way better. I think I'm going to grow like wildfire. I don't know. I might be totally full of shit here. And who knows, maybe I'll make a daily update in a week talking about how it's not working. Ideally, I'm going to stick to whatever I'm doing longer than a week. But yeah, we got some very, very interesting strategy on the main channel. Very, very interesting strategy. So 13,682 here. So 83 up, 785 up, and then 504 up. Okay. So growth today was pretty mid, not going to lie. The last, I want to say, let's try and average out the last 2 weeks. Guess that would be here, right? 14 cells, I think. Let's see. 15 cells. So let's go from here to here. Last 14 days, just to like make it known, the average growth on my main channel was 0.34%. So I just want to make this intention clear. My hypothesis is I will grow this significantly 1 week from now. So do me a favor and check back in with me September the 9th. Somebody could, I don't know, make a note or something, drop a comment down below, checking in on September the 9th or whatever. I will double back on September the 9th and we will see this relative growth metric. And I would very much like for this to improve. I should have published 3 additional pieces of content that I think will be high quality and then pretty evergreen as well. But yeah, you know, who knows? I might be full of shit. I think it's going to work pretty well though. I think it's going to work pretty well. So yeah, what's the idea? Yeah, we got a much more strict outlining and briefing process, which is nice. I hired a bunch of writers who are helping me come up with ideas. I basically deliver like a high quality brief to them, and then they flesh that out into much, much higher quality content than what I provided. And then I have notes on hand, and then I just talk about these things. I'm also using a couple of storytelling frameworks that I've recently learned that I think will yield significantly better results for like watch time and retention. Ed Lawrence's loops idea, those are going to be pretty important. We're also going to kick up the visuals, but like the visuals are not going to be like, I think a lot of what I was doing before with like the music and the intro and stuff like that is actually kind of like time stamping my content, because I think that the more stylistically intensive you make the content, the more or the shorter term it's in style, if that makes sense. So I think the key is going like minimalistic again, and then going really long form, and then like minimal edits with tasteful assets and stuff on the screen that aren't super stylistically touched. And then I think I'm going to get like views on the same video for like 2-3 years, as opposed to right now where there's like a 3 to 6 month window where I get most of the views. So, I mean, we're not going to see results on that for quite a while, but yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. And then Maker Skool is growing again. I don't know how the hell Maker Skool continues to grow. It is insane to me. Let's go Skool games, but like we got some dummy numbers we're pulling in. We grew another 6K MRR in just the last 7 days. And the gap between the dude that kicked up at the very top here and then me is now, instead of being $60,000 like it was a week and a half ago, it's now less than $30,000 or a little over $30,000. So if this continues, Spence and I are going to be back up at the top. And Spence is crushing it. He's doing really well. But yeah, I mean, lifetime Skool award would be pretty cool. I mean, like winning the Skool games twice would be sick. And I don't actually know if I'm going to, by the way, because this is all about MRR growth, right? So how do we find this out? Quarter Q3 in the money category. Yeah, man, I'm not anywhere on here because I've already basically reached the top, which kind of blows. I think in order to win, actually, if you think about it, I would need to add more than 26,000 in MRR growth. When does this end? September the 20th. So I have 27 days. Well, that's interesting. I think I might actually be able to do that. Well, no, because this guy's at 27, but I'm sure the next guy is going to like crush him. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I'd really have to pull a rabbit out of my ass if I were to win in this category. I could start a school somewhere else and just crush. Spence made a new community called Origins, which is like a low ticket one to teach what he's teaching. And he's added 20K to it just the last little while. So he's knowing him, he's going to make it because he has paid. And when you have paid, you could just like pour money into something and then make it work really well. I'm not discounting the strategy there, but like you could turn the tap on and off like a little faster than organic. Organic is like a slow ramp up, and it's like an unstoppable momentum machine. Whereas I would say this is more like it's a sports car where like you can accelerate quickly and then you can go to a slow speed. Although top momentum is usually not as fast as organic. So yeah, I got a couple interesting things there, but content's really the big thing that I'm going to focus on this week. My goal is I want to get 6 pieces of content out. Sorry, not 6 pieces of content out. I want to get 6 pieces of content scheduled before the end of the week, which I think I can do. Fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes. And I'm considering hiring an editor, another editor. My current editor is fantastic and all, but like I'm considering maybe doing 2 videos a day. Just a short trial, and I can't burn that guy out because I'm already putting him under quite a lot. So if there are any editors here that might be interested in potentially working with me, that think they can produce content quality similar to what we have currently been putting out, be confident about it, then yeah, send me over. Well, actually, don't just send me over an email. Sorry, there's a type form that I will link you guys to right over here. Hiring writers. Let's see. Head over to this type form right over here. So it's just leftclick.typeform.com/application. And then head over here and apply for the video editor role. We're also going to have some like automation roles there as well pretty soon. It'd be really cool to have you. Yeah. And, obviously there's no scale at which I can actually respond to every application, but know that if you submit an application, I will go over it. I go over every single one at least once. It's usually like 30 to 60 seconds looking at their portfolio. If the portfolio speaks to me and if it's something good, then I'll spend like 5 or 10 minutes consuming it. If I like the 5 or 10 minutes, then I'll spend like, another 15 minutes writing out an email, talking about strategy and stuff like that, and potentially get me on a call. So it could be a way to work together. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you guys very much for the time. Hope you guys appreciated the 2 hour and 27 minute video I posted yesterday. Catch you on the next one.